Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today we're going to be talking about a film from 1995, Grimm, This Is No Fairy Tale. It sure isn't. Fairy tales are often entertaining. So, what is this movie about? Well, basically, some people inadvertently awaken or summon a troll into the caves under their town, and being a vicious predatory beast, it starts breaking into people's homes and murdering and eating them. And the protagonists, who all happen to be spelunkers, of course, I guess not impossible that people who like caving would live in a place with caves. After all, head into the caves in order to try and find and destroy it. Or at least that's what most of them intend to do. Some of them may have other ulterior motives. Dun dun dun. It's not as exciting as it sounds. So that's basically the setup. So obviously, we get then lots of people wandering around caves being hunted by a big guy in a suit. So that's basically what the movie is, in terms of its premise, in terms of its plot, basically. Is it good? No. Why is it not good? Well, there's a couple of different reasons that I'm going to talk about. And we may as well just dive right into the first of those, which I've called "We Just Stop." This is a pet peeve, bugbear of mine in quote unquote horror movies, and I know this is like a 26-year-old film now, but in the 1995s were perhaps a slightly more innocent time, and it's scary to think that the 1995 was 26 years ago. But look, the way that this troll gets conjured up is a bunch of people goofing around with a Ouija board. Now let's be clear, Ouija boards are a toy manufactured by the same people that make Monopoly. They're a party trick gimmick. There is no supernatural basis to them. They are completely modern fictional creations. Yeah, you cannot summon anything with a Ouija board, and I wish horror movies would stop it. There are plenty of, thematically appropriate fairy tale reasons that you could end up with a troll. Do that. Don't use a Ouija board in your movies. It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, but it makes me roll my eyes straight away because it shows to me that they've taken it's just lazy. It's silly. Find a better reason for there to be a troll, please. And also, I couldn't not use the pun of "We Just Stop." Second problem with the movie, I've called "The Script Says So," and this is because people do stuff in this movie because the script says so. There's often no good in-universe reason for the actions people take. They take them because the script says that that's what they do, because that's what the script needs them to do, regardless of whether it makes sense, or could have been done smarter, or something more interesting could have happened. The script has a very clear intent about what it wants. It needs to, big example is, that the characters go into the caves to look for the troll because that's what the script requires them to be in the caves so the troll can hunt them. Their in-universe reason is that some of them are aware that, they messed around with a Ouija board, and there have been some earth subsidences. Now, earth subsidences might prompt you to go spelunking if you lived over caves and were a caver, to see if there was something wrong with the caves that were causing the earth subsidences. You probably wouldn't make the leap of maybe the villain, maybe there is a killer monster down there, unless you'd read the script, which clearly these characters have. You would think that they would know that the people who were inevitably going to betray them were going to inevitably betray them then, but apparently they only read parts of it. Yeah, so people do things because the script says so. If when you write a story, any story, give it to somebody else and ask them, or do it yourself after you've given yourself some space, but have somebody run an eye over it and says, do I understand why this character is taking this action at the time they do? Because if I don't, maybe the action doesn't make sense. Maybe it's just not been properly explained in context, and that just means, you need to add a little bit more. I mean, there's a flip side to this, which is where people explain stuff that is, you have the movie that holds your hand and tells you why characters are doing things that is pretty obvious why they're doing them, but it's like, can't trust you to be smart enough to follow it. And you want to find that right balance of making it clear why people are doing things without explaining, and this is why this character is doing this thing. But yeah, there needs to be contextually reason why people are doing things within the film that make sense within the universe, and not just because, well, I know this is a movie. So this is it's a classic problem that mystery films have to deal with, and mystery media in general have to deal with on the flip side, which is, as an audience, we have metatextual knowledge, and we as an audience will often guess the culprit in a mystery well before the characters do, because we know how these stories work. Alas, this is a movie that has gone, the audience knows how these stories work. We don't need to make them work in universe. The audience already knows how this is going to play out. Let's just give them exactly what's going to happen. They don't need, we don't need to actually have it make any sense in the film. Yes, you do. You can't skip out on that part of them. You can't skip out on making your characters make sense within their own existence. Finally, ironically, given that it's a movie about spelunking, there's no depth here. The characters are flat and bland, and like the bad guy's the bad guy because he's the bad guy. The good guys are good guys. There's no depth. There's no nuance. Everyone is a pro forma, cookie cutter, movie archetype. The plot is very, very pro forma and archetypal. It's got no tension. It's pretty bland. Oh, there's a monster. They go into the caves. They get chased around by the monster, and eventually they work out its weakness and stop it. Like, you can take that formula and make a good movie. The Descent takes this formula and makes people in a cave, monsters are hunting them, and it's good. It knows how to build tension. It knows how to it knows how to give characters nuance. It knows how to make the monsters threatening. It does all of this stuff right, and at some point I'll probably talk about it because it's on my list. It's on the list of things that I have watched and reviewed. And I'll talk about it in more detail about what works, why it's a really well-made film. But they're both movies about a bunch of people going into caves and running into monsters. And one of them is a good movie, and one of them is grim. And there's a reason. Grim has the characters aren't interesting. They're flat. They're bland. They're boring. The story's flat and bland, and boring. There's no sense of how to actually build up tension. It's just not well executed. And that's it's a reasonably difficult thing to do. But it's not done here, and that's a big reason why this movie fails. So that's Grimm in a nutshell. It's not very good. I paid $2 literally for this on DVD, and it wasn't worth the $2. It's far from the worst movie I've ever seen. But it's not a good movie. There's it's very, 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 very mediocre indeed. So that's Grimm. Next time, I'm going to be talking about a John Wayne film from 1934. Very old movie, obviously. Nearly 80 years old now. Not the oldest movie that I'm going to ever review, mind you. But certainly a very old film. And The Trail Beyond. We'll be talking about that. Not a movie you've probably heard of, because it's from the period before he became a star. And we'll be talking about what that means in the video, because it has some interesting ramifications. Thanks for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope you watch the next one too.